Well, that is Riku Mukherjee, and I am Tony Altieri, and this is the 506 Golf Show. Rick, like I was mentioning to you, dude, I feel like a truck hit me, so I apologize if I screw things up tonight because I am definitely under the weather. But I do have to say that it was actually a pretty good week for golf, man. I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about, the Honda, the fact that we have these elevated fields, and what happens is we end up getting trash fields, really bad golfers in these non-elevated events, especially when they're sandwiched between a couple of them. But the Honda didn't disappoint, dude. And this is purely like I had no bets that were live this week. I added a couple live ones. Nothing really was ever in play, but you, my friend, were this close to hitting a massive ticket on Sunday.
Yeah, man. I feel like a truck hit me too, but in a betting sense. Yeah, man. 151 ticket on Eric Cole, losing in the playoff, which sucked. I was lucky enough to be able to hedge out a little bit on Chris Kirk earlier. I did actually hedge out on Chris Kirk at the beginning of round 4. At the beginning, I think it was minus 110 or minus 120 or something like that. So I basically broke even on the week. Betting wise, because I just bet how much I had invested on Chris Kirk, and I just had a feeling it was either going to be Kirk or Cole. At the end of the day, I would have been really upset if one of the other guys like Sue or somebody else like popped up. I also had a Benny On ticket at 66-1. He was 5 strokes back going into Sunday, so I had some live stuff. But yeah, man, Eric Cole. It's not that he kind of came out of nowhere. He's been playing pretty well all season, and he was a pretty popular ticket. I know a lot of people in our industry that had Eric Cole tickets last week, and they were all pretty upset with the playoff loss.
Yeah, it's funny when you bet on a guy 150 to 200 to 1, which is where most of the people would land it on Eric Cole. And it was for all the same reasons, right? He was
Yeah,
playing really, really well. He's not the longest hitter, but he's fairly accurate. He's a good putter. His approach numbers had been pretty good coming into the week. And so it kind of felt like things were trending for him. And the number was wrong, right? Like we talk about like outright betting numbers, we're always like,
yeah,
where's the value? Where does the board seem soft or wrong? And he was kind of that guy when you looked at like the advanced modeling, like you and I do week to week, like he just popped off the board and the number, it was a bad number. And so many people hammered that number. And so it was a really, really popular long shot this week, although Kirk also was a popular pick.
yeah. It
Um,
was.
so it felt like half the industry was on Kirk. There was a lot of people that had Kirk Cole tickets. Like they were
Yeah,
either way they won, but they were rooting obviously for the longer odds to come through.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Eric Cole, he played really, really well. I thought like everybody did when Chris Kirk hit it in the water on 18, it was like, oh my God, he's going to
What was he?
implode
What was
again.
he do? What was he doing on that? Like he has a 1-stroke lead on an 18th par 5. You hit that into the grandstand on the left hand side if you have to.
Yeah.
Just make par. Whatever you got to do to make par. Make the other guy make birdie. And for some reason he took a line directly right at that pin and dunked it in the water. And I mean that was the chance for Cole to win the tournament, is if he was able to get up and down from right off the green, and he could have won it in regulation.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that was amazing to me about it is the fact that they play 18 again. Kirk
Yeah,
hits it behind the tree, has to chip out, and then sticks it to a foot. And it's
yeah.
like, in the back of my head, I'm like, why didn't you just do that on 18 the first time, you dummy? Like why even, to your point, like why even bring that shot into play? Hit
Yeah.
it as far left as you can, lay up, stick it to a foot, because he had been hitting his approach shots, especially those inside of 175, so well all week. But yeah, I mean, ultimately it ended up going his way, and congrats to him. It's a popular story. Everybody's kind of well aware of the struggles with him, his
Yep.
anxiety, and his drinking problems, and how he's kind of turned his career and resurrected, being a professional golfer. So it was good for him to get the win, despite the fact that you didn't hit, your 150, 175 ticket that you had on Eric Cole.
Yeah, it would have been nice, but it happens. I mean, that's the beauty of golf betting, right? We're in it, and I feel like the process that we have every week, at least for me and you, like one of us is always seems like it has a ticket in contention, or if not, both of us have a ticket in contention. So yeah, man, it's a nice feeling to know that we're doing the process correctly. And I'll be honest with you, man. This past weekend, I mean, it's not just because I had action on Honda, but I flipped it over to live for like a little bit on Sunday, and
Yeah.
couldn't watch it. It was so boring. Like I was like so much more invested, like mentally, like even if I feel like I didn't have any money on the Honda, I feel like I would have been more interested in watching the Honda finish because like Eric Cole's a 31-year-old rookie. Chris Kirk, obviously, you talked about the story with him and his coming off his alcohol issues and stuff like that. Like that stuff is more gripping to me than Charles Held III winning $4 million in live. I get it, like it's good for him. He's a journeyman on the PGA Tour. He's been playing professional golf for a long time. This is his biggest payday like ever. Like I get that, like that's nice for him, but it's just not gripping to me. It's just like not exciting to me as the storylines that we get on the PGA Tour week in and week out.
Yeah, it's funny because I think that was a common narrative throughout the industry this week was despite the fact that Charles Howell III played lights out in the live event, it was like it just seems like it's pointless. Like,
Yeah.
what are they actually playing for? Don't get me wrong. Like, there's millions of dollars at stake. And at the end of the day, that's obviously what they're playing for. But in terms of sport, like, we know that professional sports is played by millionaires, and there needs to be more for us involved in this. And the live, like everything about live feels manufactured, even the team aspect, which they continue to kind of bang that drum, like teams, this is about a team. This is the team game. That's what makes live different. It's like, it all feels very, very fake.
Yeah.
And it comes across, it comes across very inauthentic, where to your point, the stories about 34-year-old Eric Cole as a rookie, the story about, Chris Kirk and all the demons that he's battled to be where he's at. Like, those are very authentic, real stories. And that resonates with people. That's what people care about. Like, they don't care that, you're going to win 5 times as much in the API than you win in the Honda. It's that these are real guys going through real emotions, playing for more than just money. Like, this is compelling. And despite the fact that the field was not even close to being as good as it was in the live, more people watched it because it's real, it's authentic, it's raw. Like, you get to witness it all in real time, and live just lacks all of those qualities.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the best point I heard earlier today was I was watching Pat Mayo's podcast, and he said, if we're watching live, we're watching literally the same 48 guys every single week battle it out over and over. And most of the events for live this year are going to come down to probably the same like 5 to 10 guys like Cam Smith, DJ, Neiman, like the studs that are in there. But in the PGA Tour, like we have these fields every few weeks or whatever, because like not every week is an elevated event where yes, the elevated event, the best players are going to play, and we're probably going to see it come down to Rahm versus Scheffler, like, and all that stuff. But in these weak field events, like we get to see players that like don't get to compete in the elevated events. They're not finishing in the top 5 or 10, and we don't really get to see them that much. But this week they're battling it out for their careers, for their families. Like Eric Cole, like you said, he's a 30-year-old rookie or like whatever the situation is, like going for his first PGA Tour win. So that stuff is really compelling for me. Even in the elevated events, like a couple weeks ago, we had what's the Canadian guy's name?
Not Nate Lashley, Nick Taylor.
Nick Taylor, yeah, Nick Taylor battling it out with Scotty Scheffler down the stretch. Like that stuff is even compelling for me because he was a triple digit like underdog or whatever to Scotty Scheffler. So I don't know, man. The live is, I think it's going to be donezo in like 4 to 5 years, but maybe even sooner than that. But we'll see. It's just not compelling for me. And they never took anyone besides maybe Cam Smith away from the PGA Tour that I really like cared about. Maybe Neiman and Mito a little bit, but I mean, whatever. Good riddance. I still like the PGA Tour way more than live.
Yeah, I mean, I would say there's aspects of live that I like. Like I actually like the shotgun start. I like that everybody's on the course at once. They're all playing in the same conditions. Like I like that aspect of it. It makes what is, basically 12 hours of TV coverage. It condenses it down to, basically 3 or 4 hours. So there are things that I do like, and kind of like the way that I've viewed this from the beginning is very similar to when the NFL and the XFL, the first version of it, came out, where it's like, no, the XFL is not going to eclipse the NFL, and live is not going to eclipse the PGA. But there are things that the XFL did in trying to sell that product that the NFL said, that's cool, we're going to take that. And I hope there are pieces of the coverage, the way the tournaments work, which again, we wouldn't have these elevated events if it wasn't for live. Like, the reason we're getting these super fields every 2 to 3 weeks and we're getting the big money is because live basically took those guys away, and the PGA had to do something to answer back. So again, not everything that live does is bad or dumb. It just is that it lacks any kind of authenticity. And in sports, that's what people want to connect with. They want to feel connected with the guys competing, the women competing out there. They want a story. They want it to be compelling. Live just, it doesn't have any of that.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe one day. What do you think? I mean, I doubt this will ever happen, but what do you think about letting the live players just play in elevated events?
I mean, here's the thing for me. I would love, I mean, you and I know this because we talk about this all the time, but like, I can't wait for the Masters to,
Yeah,
pick Cam as Cam Smith is my one and done.
yeah,
I'm going to use DJ probably for either the PJ or the US Open. Like there's aspects of those guys competing that I think is very, very interesting. And it's funny because those two guys, I think clear and away are the two best players that they took away from the PGA. When you talk about real true elites at the top of their game, and
yeah,
you could make an argument that maybe DJ was kind of plateauing a little bit, or maybe even starting to slow down, but those are the only two super elites, and those are the two guys that really nobody like holds accountable or has any ill will against. Like everybody else is kind of a villain for going to live, like Koepka, Phil, Patrick Reed, Brooks. Like nobody really likes any of those guys. And it's like, I think we all give DJ and Cam Smith a bit of a pass, but I am looking forward to seeing those guys compete against the guys in the PGA Tour and the majors. And to answer your original question, like I would like to see it. I'd like to see them compete in these elevated events. Of course, the PGA Tour would never let it happen because they wouldn't want a guy who's not a member to win money from their organization. But I think you could see more of this live versus PGA that makes it compelling, because every time the live guys play on the DP World Tour, like that's the story is how are the guys on the tour going to respond to the live guys? And by and large, it's been pretty good. You have a couple guys that are like Billy Horschel. He's and Rory. They've been very clear that they're like, you know what, F those guys. I don't want them around. I don't want them playing in our tournaments. And every time they're there, I'm going to play to beat them. But I think that adds to the drama of it.
Yeah.
And from the fans' perspective, like that's a win. That's what you want. You want to be compelling. You want to draw people in. And at the end of the day, that's what this is. It's entertainment.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything you said there, man. I'm looking forward to maybe some sort of compromise between the two tours in the future. But yeah, man, that's all I really got from last week. Let's talk about this elevated event this week, man.
Yeah, before we jump into that, I do want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. Tons of good content. We're still doing some football shows here and there. Jake and Mike are always doing Buffalo Bill stuff. Mike's actually getting ready to record some shows with Kermit Washington on location for another channel. So, doing some collabs and things like that. So remember, subscribe to the channel. All that stuff dumps right into your feed. And then, of course, shoot us comments, whether you're watching this video in real time, after the fact. We love seeing the questions. Join the Discord. The link will be down below the video in the comments. The Discord is a great way to continue the conversation with us. Rick and I are very active on that, posting our live bets, posting stats as they're happening in real time, giving very raw opinions, much like a text string. So I encourage everybody to do that. But Rick, I did want to change up the order of things a little bit this time around. And I say that because I do want to talk a little about the betting board in terms of things being interesting. And it's funny because I don't remember the odds being this juicy, fair, attractive. I don't know how I want to, what word I want to use, but the odds this week seem very, very good. And it makes me feel like the books are saying there's really three guys that can win. And here's really good numbers on basically 90% of the field. If you think anybody else other than Rory, John Rahm, or Scotty Scheffler can win this week, we've got a ton of very good numbers. I'm already overexposed this week. When I opened up, I was like, bing, 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 because there were so many guys in that 20 to 50 range I love to bet. And before I knew it, I had like 12 bets in. I'm like, oh my God, I'm totally overexposed this week. But I'm curious. These are obviously from DraftKings Sportsbook. The odds are different depending on where you're at or what book that you're looking at. But again, there are some really, really good numbers on guys that we don't get these kinds of numbers on typically, even in majors or elevated fields. But I mean, is there anybody on here that just sticks out to you like a sore thumb, or are there odds where you're like, dude, I love these numbers?
It has to be Hideki, right? I mean, that number next to Hideki's name is unreal. Like I can't remember the last time I ever saw Hideki at 60-1. And he plays good in Florida. He has good history at this event. That's good. That's my first click of the week, man. Hideki at 60-1 is an unbelievably good, juicy number in my opinion.
You know what's crazy is I saw it at 60. I had the same initial reaction you did, and then I've kind of been watching it over the day since I bet it. It's up to 65 in some spots now. Like, it's not coming down. It's only getting bigger, which blows me away. I get it. His current form hasn't been great, and that's obviously baked into the number.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, we're talking about a guy who's won majors. He's competed in the Olympics.
Yeah.
He's won a couple events. What, he won like 3 events in the last like 18 months. Like, I get it. His form's not great, but to your point, this is a course when we get into it, like, where bad putters play well. Scotty Scheffler's won here. Rory's won here. Will Zalatoris has played well. Like, they're firm, fast greens. It mitigates putting, brings everybody kind of closer to that baseline. And Hideki, like, the one thing that he has not done well is he has not putted well his entire career. But I agree with you, man. At like anywhere between 60, 65-1, like, that number seems ridiculous.
Yeah, and even the guy right next to him, Chris Kirk, man, he what is his last 2 years? He's finished 5th and 8th at this event, and he's coming off of a win and 2 third-place finishes this season already. I like that number for Chris Kirk. 60-1 is pretty good.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is a place where Kirk's had a lot of success. I think he's made 4 or 5 straight cuts at this event, a bunch of top 15s, a bunch of top 25s. I am surprised that he is as high as that. But I mean, even in comparing Chris Kirk to Hideki Matsuyama, like, Hideki Matsuyama is a much better player.
Yeah, that number
Tigala and Mitchell, who are both very good players, like, Hideki Matsuyama is a much better player than both of those guys.
I agree. Is there anyone from like the first column there that jumps out at you? Because for me,
you know, the thing to me, like, and again, when I see, like, I bet Justin Thomas at 28-1, like 28 on Justin Thomas. Like, again, same narrative, all the same things I talked about Hideki. Like, that number is just way too big. You know, Will Zalatoris, it was widely publicized. Like, he opened at like 30 or 35 to some places, and it immediately got bet down to like 18 or 20. Like, that 22, you can't get a 22 now. Yeah. So, I mean, there's some big numbers. The other one that is jarring to me, but in the other direction,
it's got to be fit. Oh, you're in the other direction. Oh,
yeah. Well, I mean, Fitz is another one. Like,
Fitz is jarring to me. 35-1 when he's literally finished in the top 10 the last 4 years at this event. I mean, come on, that's a good number for Fitz. 35-1.
I agree with the Fitz one. Along the same lines, Sungjae at 35. Like, Sungjae should be in the mid to low 20s based off of his Florida history, his Bermuda putting, and what he's done at this event. But the one that like the other one that shocked me, but again, I kind of get it, is the Jason Day number.
I was just about to say the Jason Day number. Why is he have lower odds than Matt Fitzpatrick?
I mean, again, you know, when you look at the advanced metrics and the numbers, like, his ball striking has been phenomenal. Like, the off the tee game is still a little wild, but like, dude, his approach game and especially with wedges, he's been unbelievable. The putting is back. Like, it feels like he's the Jason Day that he was, you know, 6-7 years ago. When you look at his strokes gained metrics over the last basically 6 months, it's very similar, but even at a more elevated level than Ricky. Like, Fowler has been playing phenomenal as well too, and this is a place where Fowler's had success. But the 30-1 on Jason Day compared to the other guys in this field, to your point, when you see names like Fitzpatrick, Spieth, Burns, Tom Kim, like, all at bigger odds than Jason Day, that number seems unbettable to me.
Yeah, I don't get it either. And also, Jason Day, like, we were joking about it in our text thread. He loves theme parks. He loves Disney World. He loves to withdraw from these events. This is Memorial. Like, he loves to withdraw. He's literally withdrawn from this event to go to Disney World before. Like, I don't get it. Like, 30-1 seems pretty jarring to me. The fact that he has double better odds than Hideki, he's not as good of a golfer as, is unreal to me. So yeah, I mean, I like this betting board. It's very, very, very juicy. It looks good. So I think we're gonna. But the thing is that, like, are you only betting golfers in that 20 to 60 range, or are you gonna take some bombs? Are you gonna take anyone below 20, or is it one of those weeks where you think that someone from that range is actually gonna finally win? and not
You
one
know,
of the
it's a
top
great
guys.
so it's a great question, and the sad thing is I'm going to answer yes to everything you just asked me. And the reason why is I'm completely overexposed this week, and I apologize. My light went out, so it's like I'm a little bit in the dark here. So hold on one second.
You still look. It looks fine.
I know. I'm just trying to see if I get it to turn on. Yeah. Oh, see, look at that. We have light. Anyways, technical difficulties when you're filming at midnight Eastern time. Anyways, to answer your question, I am completely overexposed. So I got Homa at 22. I got, like I told you, Justin Thomas at 28. I was late to the party on Zalatoris, so I missed the 30s, the 25s that people were touting. Excuse me. But I was able to jump in on him at 22. I got Xander at 22 and a half, and I hit Fitz at 35. The only other guy that I've bet, and again, only other, I think I'd rattled off like 6 names, but the only other guy that I really like, and I actually got it a bigger number than he shows here, is Sam Burns. I got Sam Burns at 55. So, I already, for the amount that I typically bet in that range, I've bet more guys. But I also feel like this is probably an event where you guys beyond 60-1 probably have no shot at winning this event. Sans a couple of guys like we talked about, like a Hideki. Like, he's probably the guy at the biggest odds that I could see making a serious run. I'll probably end up betting Gary Woodland like I always do at like 80-90-1. But do I think Gary Woodland can beat these guys? No, but it is golf, so anything can happen. But so yeah, I am basically swimming in the 20 to 30, 35 range. I have, like I said, 5 or 6 bets there, and then the one bet at Sam Burns at 50 or 55. I'd have to refresh my memory here, but so I think that's where I'm going to stay. Like, I bet 2 top 10s. I bet Minwoo Lee top 10 at like 14-1. He absolutely struck the shit out of ball at Honda last week. He just could not putt. He had a couple really, really bad approach shots that screwed up his numbers down the stretch. He never really threatened, but I mean, the dude was absolutely striping the ball, and he is long, very long off the tee. And then the other guy is Ryan Fox. Like, dude, Fox has won a bunch of times on the DP World Tour. He absolutely bombs the ball. His approach game has been phenomenal over the course of the last year on the DP World Tour. We just don't see him. And I think I bet him top 10 at like, I want to say like 14 or 16-1. So
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm going to be. I would not advise betting anybody to win outright. Like I said, longer than maybe Hideki. Like, I look at the names, and yes, there's a case for the Fleetwoods and the Woodlands and the Fowlers and even Keegan Bradley. Like, but everything has to break their way in order to win. And I feel like, the first half of that first column, like, they just need their A-, B+ game, and they win this event.
Yep. Like we usually do every week, we'll put our complete betting card out on Discord on Wednesday. So if you guys want to tailor any of our picks, we seem to be doing pretty well this season. So you can always tailor our picks on Wednesday.
Yep. I mean, is there any leans for you early? Have you placed any bets yet? Or, I mean,
no, haven't placed anything yet. But I definitely am leaning towards that Hideki and Chris Kirk numbers at 60. But I'm probably most likely going to bet Willsey and Matt Fitzpatrick at the top of the board.
Yeah, I like Fitzy a lot this week. He's my one and done pick. We'll get into that later in the show, but yeah. I really do like him. I know that he's kind of been battling a neck injury ever since Pebble Beach, and people are concerned about that. But I just can't look at his history of like 4 straight top 10s and just ignore that and say, okay, he absolutely loves this course. And just say, oh, well, he's just not playing well, so I'm not going to take him. But yeah, I like Fitz a lot this week, and the number just seems right.
Yep, I totally agree.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump into the DraftKings preview for this week. We can go ahead and do that. But again, a lot of the similar names, a lot of names at the top of the board. The only guy that maybe feels like two guys that you feel like you're getting a bit of a discount here at the top of the board is maybe Rory and Max Homa. And that's only because Scotty Scheffler and John Rahm are above him. Yeah. But I mean, dude, this is a star-studded event. This course is like 7,600 yards. It's one of the most difficult courses year in and year out. When you look at the guys, the leaderboards at this course, it's very similar to Torrey Pines, Memorial, and what do all those tournaments have in common? They're long. The conditions tend to be pretty tough. The greens are fast and firm. There's an absolute premium on ball striking. And this week, based off of the early forecasts and the weather, and Rick, you're more of the weather maven than I am. It looks like the conditions on Friday afternoon and Saturday could be absolutely brutal in terms of wind. So there's probably some stack opportunities in that. I haven't seen tee times yet. Maybe you have, but it looks like Friday afternoon could be absolutely murder in terms of the wind. And again, it's early. We're Monday night, and this thing's not kicking off for another 3 or 4 days, so things can change. But
Yep.
Do you have any early leans in terms of the weather stacks, or have you seen tee times posted yet? Because I have not.
No, I haven't seen any tee times posted, but right now, looking on Thursday and Friday, definitely looking like Friday afternoon is going to be the worst of the conditions. So maybe a Thursday PM, Friday AM stack would be the way that I would lean, but obviously we want to wait until Wednesday. Like I just said, I'll write a detailed weather report on Wednesday in the Discord. So I like to wait until Wednesday to see how the weather matures a little bit. But as of right now, it's looking like a little bit of a PM AM stack, but we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see how the tee time shake out too.
Yeah, it's always important, when we look at these weather stacks, like you have to throw this caveat out that it's like, hey, we think this is how it's gonna play out, but weird shit can happen with weather. Like patterns can change. We've seen it multiple times where we have these delays in action and it totally throws off the stacks because of the way that the weather can cause havoc. Now, it's very, very rare, if at all, that they ever slow or stop a tournament because of wind. It's usually for rain or tough conditions like that. But I mean, we've seen it. The Players last year is like the primary example of like where everybody played the stack and there was just a massive delay because of the weather, and the group that everybody picked got absolutely crapped on by the weather. So it's always one of those things that can be fickle, but wind is a little more predictable where we don't expect those kind of delays, and it tends to stay truer to the forecast over time.
Yep. So who do you like up here? I like Rory at the top of the board. I think he's going to be the most popular play, 10K and above. What are your thoughts about Jon Rahm? Because it's hard to deny what he's been doing, but of course he's been doing it all on the West Coast, where he plays his best golf. He traditionally does not play that well in Florida, like over the course of his career. Obviously, this is probably a different Jon Rahm than the last 5 years. He looks like he's on his own tier when it comes to playing golf. But what are your thoughts on Rahm this week? Because I'm looking at ownership right now on a Monday evening, and he's looking like he's going to be the lowest owned between him, Scheffler, and Rory. So a low owned Jon Rahm, that's enticing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think like a lot of people, the narrative is Jon Rahm, West Coast, automatic play. You get into Florida, just go ahead and, uncheck the box. And it's not that anything's going to change from a ball striking perspective, but historically he's become very, very pedestrian around the greens and on the greens on Bermuda. It's just he's been very open about the fact that he's struggled with Bermuda over the course of his career, which is why he typically doesn't play these Florida events. And that is the one thing that's very good about these elevated events is we're getting guys to play tournaments that they either would never play or would play once every 5 or 7 years because the PGA Tour demands that they do that. We're getting guys like Cantlay and Rahm, Finau, guys that don't typically play here because of the course style and the grasses. But to answer your question, if Jon Rahm is going to come in at low ownership, it's really, really hard to fade him.
Yeah.
But I understand why people will. Scotty Scheffler won this event last year pretty easily. And then Rory McIlroy has the best course history of anybody in this event. He's won it and has multiple top 10s, top 15s, top 20s, you name it. Rory's done it at this course. And this is typically where we see him kind of turn the corners in the Florida swing. So it's hard to argue with the logic on why the ownership's there. I just, again, if I'm getting a discount on Jon Rahm ownership where we're used to seeing him like 22 to 30% in every field, and all of a sudden now he's like 15%, half of the ownership, like I'll go ahead and take a chance. and hope that John Rahm shows up, because I don't need him to win this week. I just need him to show up and play well. I need him to top 10 at 11.5 because the pricing is so compressed. Like, you can go and put together a pretty strong rest of your lineup, even with a guy in at 11.5.
Yeah, totally agree. That's the thing that I'm looking at right now. And if he's going to come in lower owned, definitely going to have to consider clicking his name. Even though a couple weeks ago I said we'll see how he plays at at API before I decide what to do with him at the Players, because Players is a really big event for the year. But this is a big event too, like you said. This is an elevated event. Rahm's coming to play. He's coming to win. He's obviously coming off of a win, 2 wins, and a second place the last like 3 times he's played. So, yeah, man. I like John Rahm this week. All things considered, he's pretty hefty price tag at 11.5. I like the fact that DraftKings priced him $600 above Scotty Scheffler and almost $900 above Rory. That's something that I appreciate that DraftKings did, because it makes your lineup a little bit more difficult to build if you start with John Rahm. But yeah, that's gonna scare some people away. His ownership will be lower. So if you start off with John Rahm and then you pepper the high 7Ks and mid 7Ks, and you could potentially have a decent lineup. But for me, it's gonna be Rory up here. I mean, his course history here is just impeccable, like you said. He never really plays well on the West Coast, and then when he gets down to Florida and the heat and stuff like that, that's where he really starts to turn it on. We obviously know what his course history is like here. We know what his course history is like next week at Sawgrass. So love Rory at the top. In the 9K range, ownership wise, it's looking like Will Z is going to be the highest owned guy in this range, and I get it. We like Will Z in tough conditions. We like Will Z at difficult golf tracks and stuff like that. You know me, I'm a Zalatoris stan, so definitely going to be clicking his name. The other guy I like in this range, in the 9K range, is probably going to be Victor Hovland, a little bit at flat 9K. I know he's not been playing good golf, but he did have a second place finish last year. He gets to come down to Florida now, where he plays a little bit better than he does over there. So I like Victor Hovland at 9K. Before his second place finish last year, had nothing to really smile about. A bunch of places in the 40th place finishes. So he does have a lot of course history here. He's the only player in the 9K range that's played this course for 4 straight years, 4 times in general. So I like that he's seen the course the last 4 years. So he may not make like my cash game lineup, but I definitely like him in GPPs. But for cash, I think I'm going to start like Rory, Zalatoris, and then move on from there.
Do you think just from a construction standpoint that the most popular build is going to be Rory Zalatoris or Rory Hovland?
That's a good question. I think that the most popular build this week is going to be Rory, Zalatoris, and then probably Tyrrell Hatton in the low 8Ks. So we'll get to that in a minute. But I could see a lot of people starting the lineup with Rory, Zalatoris, Fitz, Rory, Zalatoris, Hatton, but I don't think it's going to be Hovland. I think people are going to tend to click Zalatoris more than Hovland. I think if people are going to have Hovland as their second man in, I think in that case they might buy up to Scotty Scheffler or John Rahm in that situation.
Yeah, I could see Scheffler, Hovland, Rory, Zalatoris as probably the 2 most popular builds. I mean, and if you do that, the 3 guys that you mentioned, McIlroy, Zalatoris, and Hatton, that leaves you with basically $7,200 a guy.
Yeah.
So if you go down and look down in that range, the popular names, so the guys at 7,200, Wise, Noren, Harmon, Moronk, who showed up last week in Honda, a guy that we talked about last week, Thomas Detry, Henley at 7,100, Taylor Moore. I mean, you get below that, it kind of gets, I guess, what I would call unattractive very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But you could grab a guy at like 73, like a Nick Taylor or a Min Louis or a Luke List, who's got, pretty good course history. So my guess would be that people are going to go with like Aaron Wise and probably, do you think people will buy back in on Detry?
After what he did to me last week, probably not.
The withdrawal, I know.
Yeah.
The withdrawal was, I mean, it sunk a lot of people's
Well,
lives.
he played like crap the first round, so I don't think his withdrawal was injury related. I think he was just like, whatever. I'm not going to make the cut. I have an elevated event next week. I'm just going to go prepare for that or something like that. So
Yeah.
I don't think it was an injury situation, but no, I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned than he was. He was a pretty popular play last week, flat 9K, and then you're getting an $1,800 discount for him. I think he's going to be pretty low owned. I think people are rather good at Wise or Moronk right below him, to be completely honest with you. But we'll get into the 7Ks in a few minutes.
Very good point. But yeah, I agree. I think the other guy, a couple clicks higher, you've got in the high 7Ks, you've got guys like Kirk and, Fowler and Bradley. Those guys will be popular names as well. So we'll get into that here in a second. But for me at the top here, I think what I'll probably end up doing is, if Rom ends up gaining steam and getting to that 20% threshold, I'll probably pass on him again. It'll give me every reason I can and build in all the narratives that we talked about on Bermuda grass in Florida, uncomfortable with all those things. And I may start my lineups with like Homa or Thomas or Morikawa, and then stuff Wilsey or, Xander Schauffele or Victor Hovland in there. This is, I don't know what we're going to get from Tony Finau this week. I think he's played this event twice. He missed the cut once, and then I think he finished like in the 20s the other time before. And Cantlay, he's never played this event before. And he's traditionally not played Florida courses because he does not like playing on Bermuda. So this might be a wait and see week for me on Patrick Cantlay, but I would probably end up, if ownership goes the way that it's going to go, I could see myself fading all three guys above 10K and building something that starts with like 2 9K guys and 2 8K guys.
Yeah, I'm totally out on Cantlay this week. He never really plays that well in Florida, in my opinion. So let me ask you a question. So it looks like in the 9Ks, it looks like the chalk, the quote unquote chalk, is going to be Homa, Morikawa, Zalatoris, and Victor Hovland. Those look like the four guys that are going to be the higher owned guys. And then the lower owned guys are going to be JT, Finau, Schauffele, Cantlay. So out of those low end guys, I'm guessing your favorite is JT?
Yeah, I'd probably go JT, Xander, Finau, Cantlay in that order.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think I agree with that too. I think JT and Xander 1A, 1B for me, and then Finau, Cantlay.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, that you talk about a really good lineup where you could get some ownership break where you're going to get some leverage on the field. But if you started your lineups Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, that's a great way to start, and you're going to automatically be different than 75% of the people.
Yeah, no one started their lineups like that, and it is an attractive start with two guys that with win equity, two guys that have played well in Florida in the past. So, yeah, man, I totally agree with that. But for me, I love Will Z. He's gonna be my guy this week. I think he's primed to win a tournament in Florida, and I think it could come this week.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. We always talk about there's certain guys that you want to play. Scotty Scheffler is one of those guys, but firm, fast conditions, difficult scoring, like that's Will Zalatoris. Like we said, we don't want Will Zalatoris in a 22 to 26 under tournament. Like that's not where he wins and shows up. It's absolutely super difficult grind fests with very, very difficult conditions where scoring is at a premium. And that's why he showed up at every single major last year, because he plays well in big spots. The ball striking is unwavering, and the putting gets mitigated because the greens are so tough. And he's a much better putter, much like a lot of the guys that are shit putters for most of the course of the year. They just tend to putt better on very, very firm, very, very fast greens because it mitigates that advantage across the field of players.
Yeah, I agree. Thoughts on Morikawa coming off a really, really good West Coast? And
I keep clicking his name because they keep giving him to me like in the 20s, and so I'll keep clicking his name. And, the guy in terms of DraftKings, if you're getting a guy at $9,500 who's going to get you a top 5 every time he plays, like that's, again, I don't know how you can argue with that. So I could see going to Morikawa. But like I told you, I think I might end up going like Homa, Xander, Thomas, Xander to start my lineups. And that probably squeezes me out of Morikawa. I do want some exposure to Zalatoris. I do want some exposure to Hovland. But I think just because of playing those 4 other guys in that range, he might get squeezed for me on DraftKings.
All right, let's drop down to the 8s.
In the 8s, it doesn't get much easier in terms of trying to decipher who you want to play. There's some clear-cut guys that I will be avoiding this week in this range, but then there's also some real big question marks in terms of guys who are playing very, very well on surfaces that we know that they can score on. The first one to me is Matthew Fitzpatrick, even though he is at 8,800, just below Sungjae Im. All of the same things that I said about Will Zalatoris, I apply to Matthew Fitzpatrick. Is the conditions, the scoring, the weather, the wind, that just screams Matthew Fitzpatrick for me.
Yeah, me too. And we're getting a little bit of an ownership discount with him too, because it looks like he's getting squeezed ownership wise with chalky Sungjae right above him, and then a chalky Jason Day below him. So give me Fitz, Young, and Spieth over those 2, I think, in this situation, because they're all 3 going to be lower owned comparatively to Sungjae and Jason Day. Spieth is looking like he's coming in the clear pivot in this range. But we've seen him play decent at this course before. He had a 4th place finish here 2 years ago. He had a 6th place finish a couple weeks ago. Yeah, man, I don't mind those 3 guys in comparison. Like if I was going to be building GPP lineups, I think I'd rather pivot off of Im and Jason Day and go to Fitz, Young, Spieth. And then below that, I think I'd rather, just for GPP purposes, I'd rather take the ownership discount, because Tom Kim is getting extremely squeezed out with a chalky Jason Day above him and a chalky Tyrrell Hatton below him. I think I'd rather go to Tom Kim or Hideki below him. So it's a range where you can see clear pivot options here. But do you have the stones to click Jordan Spieth's name? Do you have the stones to click injured Matthew Fitzpatrick's name? Do you have the stones to click a Tom Kim who's never played this course before? I don't know. Tough calls. I can see why Sungjae and Jason Day and Tyrrell Hatton are chalks. But out of those 3 guys, I think that my favorite chalk out of those 3 is going to be Tyrrell Hatton. Guy's been playing pretty good golf recently. And then his finishes the last 4 years have been 2nd, 21st, 1st, 29th. So, yeah, I think out of those 3 pieces, if I'm going to pick a chalk in this range, it's going to be Tyrrell Hatton. And if I'm going to pick a pivot in this range, it's going to be Fitz and Cam Young, maybe some Jason Day, maybe some Tom Kim.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Tyrrell Hatton is he basically gains in every single metric. Probably around the green game is probably the one area where he is not as sound, but we've also seen him have phenomenal rounds around the greens. But over the course of the last 5 events, he's gaining off the tees, gaining on approach. And if you look even longer term, even going back to his last 100 events, he consistently ball strikes very, very well. Tee to green game getting anywhere between 2 and 3 strokes, from tee to green. And you just got to hope that he putts well. And this has been a place at this event, to the point about how he's finished, where he has putted very, very well for some reason. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the conditions, the green complexes, whatever. Euro guys have played very, very well at the API, and it could just be where it falls in the schedule. We typically don't see the European guys until we get into the Florida swing. But these guys show up and this course suits them, and they always seem to contend at this event. And even last week, before, we had these elevated events, you would see a ton of Euro guys playing in the Honda. Obviously that didn't happen as much this year, but I like Hatton a lot. And to your point, what's not to like? He's coming in very good form. The advanced metrics are good. The course history is phenomenal. So I see why everybody's going there. And I get the Jason Day love. I totally understand it. I would rather be late to that party. That's kind of how I am with Fowler as well. I feel like I'll be late to that party and I'll jump in once it's okay, they're officially back now. And even though Jason Day, all the numbers are showing it, in an event like this, I don't know why, but I got to see it again. Torrey Pines is a comfort place for him. But I want to see it this week. If I see it this week, if Jason Day goes out there and he wins this event by some unbelievable stroke of luck, or he contends and plays well and gets another top 5 where the ball striking metrics are phenomenal, I'll be all back in on Jason Day. But I'm not ready to do that yet. To your point, the names for me, this is a great pivot option or pivot location for me, this price range. I love Fitz, I love Cam Young, and I love Keith Mitchell down at the bottom. I think Keith Mitchell's he's turned a corner in terms of the type of guy that he is to be, as well as he played down in the Genesis. And we know Bermuda is Keith Mitchell's preferred surface, him and Burns. Like, there is a massive difference in their putting splits on Bermuda than any other surface. So those guys would be my favorites, Fitz, Young, and Mitchell. And then Burns would probably be 4th for me in this range as well.
Yeah, I like the Keith Mitchell call. I can't deny the fact that he's been playing so good the last few events out on the West Coast. Bermuda's his best putting surface. We all know that. But yeah, man, what did he do on the West Coast? He had a 5th place at the Genesis, a 4th place at Pebble Beach, and a couple of made cuts around that. So he's playing good golf. Comes back to Florida, Bermuda, where he plays best. Okay course history here. The last 2 years haven't been great. Not missed cuts or anything, but 61st and 43rd. But before that, in 2020 and 2019, a 5th and a 6th place finish. So we know he can turn it up at this course and play well and contend. And I like the price tag. $8,000, I think, is a fair price tag for Keith Mitchell this week. Never thought I would really say that for Keith Mitchell in an elevated event, but I think it's a fair price tag, and I think he deservedly deserves to be priced higher than the guys right below him.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you point to in 2020 and 2019 that he had top 10 finishes here, top 5 in one of those, in terms of the statistics, like where I've kind of rated guys out statistically in this, he's 7th in off the tee, which isn't the best metric, but still to be, in a field with the elite players that are here, and to be 7th off the tee. He's top 25 in opportunities gained. He's top 30 in putting from 10 to 15 feet, which to me is a key distance. Like, you're going to need to make some of those 10 to 15 footers to find yourself in contention this week. He rates out really, really well. And you mentioned it, like, the guy's just been nails. He's never really been a West Coast guy, but top 25 at the Amex and a couple of top 5s, like you mentioned, both the Genesis and Pebble. I mean, the guy's playing really, really well, and it's just the consistency that we're seeing in the ball striking, and now we get back to a surface where he can putt. That's why I'm very, very pro Burns and Mitchell this week, and I think because of the names that are surrounding them both above and below, I just think they're going to get squeezed, and it's a great – both of those guys, to me, are great pivot options.
I agree. Let's drop down to the
7s, again, great names here. Got some of them we just saw here last week in Lowry and Horschel. Lowry, course horse at the Honda, played very, very well. He just could not hit the putts down the stretch on Sunday or even on Saturday to that respect to put him in contention. Horschel started out so hot and it fizzled really, really quickly. But, Connor's good course history here. Kirk, who got the win. Fowler, Scott, Rose, who just won recently. Keegan Bradley, who's got great course history. Fleetwood, very good course history. Woodland, very good course history. So, this range, especially the top half of the 7Ks, is packed with guys. It gets a little wonkier as we get down into the lower 7Ks, but even guys like Ryder and Fox, who we mentioned in the betting segment, Christian Bezuidenhout. Bezuidenhout's played very well at this tournament as well, too. Another Euro guy. There are really good options here. Where do you think ownership's going to pool? But then who are the guys that you really, really like in the 7Ks?
So above 7,500 and above, it looks like chalk's coming in on Keegan and Fleetwood for some reason. Does Fleetwood have good course history here?
Yeah, Fleetwood, I think, has played very, very well here over the
pretty good course history, so that makes sense. Kirk's getting some love. Fowler's getting some love. Lowry, Tagala, and Horschel are getting no love whatsoever. And I get that with, Lowry never making a cut here. Tagala missed the cut here last year. Horschel's the interesting one for me, especially the fact that he came out and played pretty well last week. Maybe that was like kind of his like warm-up tournament for Florida. But Horschel coming in at right now looking like less than 5% ownership. He had a runner-up finish here last year to Scotty Scheffler. A missed cut before that, and then the 3 make cuts before that. So pretty good, decent course history here. I never really click on that name, but at such low ownership, that's definitely something that interests me. But I think above 7,500, my favorite play is going to be Chris Kirk. Obviously, coming off of a win, and multiple top 5 finishes before that. He's playing the best golf of probably his career at the moment. And I like the price tag. 7,700 is very fair for Chris Kirk. He was 9,900 last week, 9,800. So he gets a $2,200 discount after winning a PGA Tour event. So that's pretty enticing. So of course he's going to be chalky. I get that. But I definitely like that. I'll go back to Fowler here. Obviously it's a little risky with Ricky. Obviously I don't know. Is he traditionally good in Florida? I mean, I know he's won the Players, but like overall in Florida, like he's not that great in Florida, right? Just the win in the Players. I don't remember any other wins or like playoffs or anything like that, right?
Well, he lives in Florida. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So he typically had always played the Honda. I think Fowler won the Honda. Maybe it was like back in like 2017 or 2018. Yeah. Like he won there. He had a couple other. I think he had a second place finish in 19.
So overall, he's a pretty good player in Florida. So
yes,
I think getting to the comforts of coming home and stuff like that's good for him. So yeah, I like that. I like the Fowler call. I think to be completely honest with you, Tony, I think the most popular build this week could be like Rory, Zalatoris, and then a bunch of these guys in the upper 7Ks.
Yeah, like go throw in a Chris Kirk and a Keegan Bradley and Tommy Fleetwood, those 3 guys.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty chalky cash game build. So it's nice. It's a nice lineup to look at, but I don't recommend putting that in a large field GPP. You won't really have a chance to win unless you hit the stone cold nuts pretty much.
Yeah, so, I mean, even Woodland down there, like at 7,400, like he's going to be super popular based off of where he finished at the Genesis and the fact that I think he finished like top 5 here last year.
Yeah, he's looking like he's going to be the chalkiest guy under 7,500. He's coming in at right now 16%, and no one else is double digits in that range. So for me, I mean, I know you play Woodland, but I don't ever play him. I'm just going to pivot right to Lucas Herbert at 7,400, same price tag as him. Lucas Herbert last year finished 7th. He's been playing pretty good golf the last 5 events out, 5 straight made cuts, a couple 3rd place finishes. He's been playing good golf recently, so definitely like Lucas Herbert at 7,400 as a direct pivot off of Gary Woodland in that price range. The other chalky names that we named earlier, Aaron Wise looks like he's going to be pretty chalky. Adrian Moronk is going to be a little bit chalky. I like Moronk. He played well last week, man. I was watching him. He was in one of my DraftKings lineups that was doing well and got a 6-6 through, and he was playing really well, so I was following him. Definitely like that. Anybody else below 7,500 that we like? Christian Bezadian, who 7,100. I like that. 3 straight made cuts here, all top 20 finishes and a top 10 finish. Taylor Moore broke my heart a couple weeks ago when he went 5 over the last like 6 holes and missed the cut. But I mean, before that, he was playing phenomenal and was minus the last 5 holes where he went 5 over and missed the cut. He was playing really good golf, so I could definitely go back to some Taylor Moore. Anybody else? Bo Hostler has four made cuts here. Yeah, Benny Hahn has 4 made cuts out here. He played well last week also. I don't mind some Benny Hahn. Molinari is in 6K range. We'll get to that in a minute. But I don't really have much. Sam Ryder, like you said, was playing well on the West Coast. I feel like Sam Ryder is sometimes more of a West Coast guy than an East Coast guy. So maybe not go back to him. Maybe want to see what he does on the East Coast. But you got any other names down here? Minwoo Lee, 7,300.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to Minwoo. He was my one and done pick last week. I just think he sets up really, really well. So I'm going to go back to him at 73. The other name that's interesting to me, just because he was so hot for so long and then all of a sudden he just kind of fell off the last 2 weeks, is Taylor Montgomery. Like Taylor Montgomery was like everybody's darling here 3 weeks ago. And then something happened. And I don't know what happened, but with the Waste Management, he basically lost in every single metric. Like he played absolutely abysmal. And then he followed that up at the Genesis with basically the same exact thing where he just played terrible. The only place he gained was putting. So I'm not sure what broke with him, but he was like just an off the tee beast all the way going back to like the Sandersons and the Fortinet. And for some reason, like that abandoned him at Waste Management. And then he was just absolutely abysmal on approach and around the greens at the Genesis. So I don't know. I guess it's a high risk, high reward play. Like, are you going to get the Taylor Montgomery that we saw for like 12 straight weeks? Or are you going to get the guy that we saw the last 2 weeks that showed up and just played terrible? So I'm interested there. The other name that I like, just because he's playing really, really well, and I think he's missed at least 1 or 2 cuts at this event, is Seamus Powers. Like Powers been playing very, very good golf here. I think he's got like 3 top 15 finishes in a row coming into this event. He's only played it once in the last 5 years, which was a missed cut last year. But I like Seamus Power for the same reason that you like Herbert off of Woodland. I like the pivot there, and I'm just hoping that I can ride that form in this event. For him to play well at Waste Management and at Genesis to elevated events and be in the top 20, like that says a lot to me. So I like Power there and Minwoo Lee at 7,300. Other than that, I'm interested to see what happens with ownership over the week with Hoagie and Wise. Like both of those guys, like Hoagie rated out phenomenally for me. He's been playing very, very good. And then Wise, who had not been playing good, and then he shows up at Honda and finishes top 30. He's been pretty good at this course, 3 out of 4 made cuts with a top 20. So those two guys at 73 and 72, I like as well. And then, it's hard to like just totally shut out Nick Taylor at 73. That's the other guy. Like he's made 2 out of 4 cuts here. He's been playing really, really good. You mentioned, how close he came to beating Scheffler in Arizona. So, Taylor's another guy. I think those 3 guys, Taylor, Hoagie, Wise, I'm going to see how ownership matures, and I'll probably end up playing whichever one of those 3 guys ends up being the lowest owned.
Who's your favorite play below 7,500?
Favorite play? I'm going to say that this week it's going to be Minwoo Lee. I'm going to have him I'll be more overexposed on him than anybody else. I have a feeling like he's getting ready to break out.
Okay. I'm surprised you didn't say Gary Woodland.
No. I do like Woodland, but I also don't like when Woodland's chalk.
Yeah, that's a scary. Gary Woodland chalk is never a good thing. But
that's scary chalk.
I think above 7,500, my favorite play is going to be Chris Kirk, and I think below 7,500, I think my favorite play is going to be I'm gonna roll with Lucas Herbert this week. He's been playing pretty good golf recently. He finished top 10 finisher last year. I like that play below 7,500. Betting on, whatever, he played well last week. It's tough to ever really rely on him, but I don't mind some betting on at 7,000 either.
Yep. Nope. I totally agree. I like Ben on down there. Maybe Fox at 7,000. If you get the Ryan Fox that's been playing pretty well on the DP World Tour. So, all right, into the dumpster we go. It's a much smaller grouping of guys, just because we're only 120 guys in this event. So that means basically more than 50% of the field is going to make the cut this week. Yeah. So there are going to be guys down here that end up doing it. My assumption is you're going right back to your boy Eric Cole after he came through for you last week.
Absolutely. No doubt about it. Definitely going right back to him over the last 36 rounds. He's 25th in this field in strokes gained total. I like that. I also like Taylor Pendrith. This is a nice price for Taylor Pendrith, to be completely honest with you. 6,900 when he's been perennially like in the high 7s or even the mid to high 8s the last few tournaments that he's played in. Definitely like some Taylor Pendrith at 6,900. The other guys are like whatever. I mean, Joseph Bramlett played well on the West Coast. I don't mind going back to him. Ben Griffin, I had him, and he was in my main lineup last week. He played well on the weekend to, I think, get a top 20 finish. Yeah, 21st finish last week. We'll definitely go back to him. I like the price of 6,700. I think that's a little bit of a, I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think that's a little bit of a misprice for Ben Griffin. I think he should be a little bit higher. I think he should at least be 6,900, 7,000, something like that. So I like the value there with Ben Griffin at 6,700. Who else?
No $6,300 Webb Simpson for you?
No, he's terrible. Did he make the cut last week?
I don't think he did.
I think he did.
Did he make the cut? Let's see here.
No, he missed the cut.
I was gonna say I think he missed. I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, he missed the cut last week. Yeah. Let's see. Any other names? Oh, I did want to talk about Molinari. I mean, he's terrible form, obviously, but he's a past winner here. What event? It was a few events ago that he was popping and played pretty well. Any interest in Molinari? No, probably not. Right? He's really
I mean, again, I think I got to see it. Like he had that run, dude, where he showed up everywhere for a year. Yeah. It was the same year that he won the Open, and I don't know what has happened to him. Maybe he just lost his focus or his drive to win.
I can tell you what happened to him. Tiger Woods happened to him when he came back and beat him in the Masters. Ever since then, he's been a wreck. Like he hasn't been able to play golf since he lost the Masters to Tiger.
Yeah, and the thing that's crazy is I don't know how he continues to end up in these fields. Like he was in the Genesis, he was in the Waste Management. Like
I think it's
in these events.
I just think he's still riding the coattails of his Open Championship win.
Man, I mean, here's the thing. So he won this event in 2019. They obviously didn't play it in 2020 because of COVID, but he won it in 2019. He's got 1, 2, 3 other top 10 finishes at this event. He's only missed the cut once in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 trips here. Yeah. So obviously this is a place where he plays very, very well, but you could have said the same thing about the Genesis last week, and he missed the cut there last week. So yep. I can't do it. I mean, I won't go there. I get it if somebody wants to play that narrative, but to me, you gotta show me that you're that guy.
Yeah. 2 other names I want to throw out there for you. I like how Danny Willett's been playing recently. He's been playing some good golf. He likes to play in Florida. He had a 29th last week at the Honda, the 18th before that, and he has 3 straight made cuts at this event the last 3 years. So I like Danny Willett at 6,800. And I think I want to go back to Ben Taylor, man. I was playing him on the West Coast, and then he all of a sudden stopped like playing well and missed a bunch of cuts in a row. I got off of him, and now he comes back to Florida and has a 5th place finish last week at Honda. Maybe he just kind of needed a little bit of a break. I'm not really sure, but I like Ben Taylor. I think Ben Taylor at what is he at 6,500 is a good price for him too.
All right, so I got to throw a couple names at you down here, and sure. Again, we're talking about I'm talking about winning. I'm talking about like making the cut. Talking about playing on the weekend, those kinds of things. So I want to throw a couple names at you just because I think they're going to be unpopular. But if you look at the way that they've been playing, it's like, okay, the first name I'm going to throw at you is an old guy, so no one's going to play him. But Zach Johnson. Zach Johnson now has made 1, 2, 3, 4 cuts in a row, 4 cuts in a row. He had a 32 at the Phoenix, and he finished 12th last week at the Honda. He has also made, let me get this right. I want to make sure I say it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 straight cuts at this event. Has not missed in 13 years.
Yeah.
Zach Johnson.
Interesting.
Round out your lineup.
Yeah, it's not a bad call. I'm not obviously not in like cash games or whatever, but in GPPs it's not bad. But like, what upside are you getting with Zach Johnson? Yeah, he has a bunch of made cuts in a row, but the last 5 years I don't see anything better than a 26th. But I guess if he can get a top 20 at 6,500, that's a nice buy. But I mean, in all honesty, why are you going to play Zach Johnson when you can play better golfers like Adam Schenk played well last week? And
that was one of the other names I wanted to throw at you was Schenk. Schenk's made 4 in a row now.
Schenk was in my cash game lineup last week, and he played damn well.
Yep. Okay, so you're in on Shank, but you're out
Yep.
on Zach Johnson.
Yep.
The other name that I want to throw by for completely different reasons, but again, a lot of people are going to see it and just skip right by it. But it's Ludwig Aberg. Have you heard of this kid?
Yeah, he's like one of the best amateurs, or he was amateur in the world, right?
Yeah, he's the number 3 amateur in the world. He's the top college player on PGA Tour right now. He just won an event out here in Palm Springs last weekend.
Oh yeah, what
And
event
he
was
beat,
that?
it's one of the PGA Tour U events.
Okay.
Pepperdine won the team event, but he finished third overall, or he finished first overall, but he beat the number 2 and the number 1 amateur players in the world in that event. So Ludwig Aberg, he is also a phenomenal wind player. Rick will tell you, we're out here in Southern California. The winds have been absolutely brutal. Last week, they were ridiculous. I'm talking like 40, 50 mile an hour in a gust. And this kid shot 1 under in those conditions. So if you're looking for a dude down here who can play in the wind, that dude can absolutely play in the wind.
Okay, interesting. All right, I will ride that and put him in one of my lineups this week just for you.
There you go. And then when he badly misses the cut, you can blame me for it.
I don't mind below him. Pearson Cootie, I mean, he started off pretty on fire last week on Thursday. Faded off, obviously. He still made the cut at Honda last week. I don't mind that 6,100. Thurston Lawrence is 6,100.
Mayo's guy,
Mayo's guy. Yeah, I don't mind him at 16. These are names. These are guys that I play in DraftKings. Like,
dude, Matthew Neesmith was like $8,200 here a couple weeks ago,
and he's 6,200 now. Kevin Streelman 6,100. Callum Tarrant 6,100. Lucas Glover. Man, these are some. You can round out your lineups with a professional golfer in this low 6K range and be not confident, but not terrible either.
Dude, you got my boys Lipsky, Kitayama, like they're all down here too, man. I love throwing money away on those guys.
Yeah. I don't mind it. Nothing else really. Ryan Brem, what has he been doing? He had a 14th place finish. I know he plays well in the wind. Why is Ryan
Hoffman's made a couple cuts and he has some decent course history here as well too.
Yeah.
Not that I'll play him because
I wouldn't recommend going down to this low 6K range, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to go down to this low 6K range if you're trying to be different and actually click a name. Like, I feel like Matthew Neesmith has upside to finish top 20. I think Callum Tarrant has upside to finish top 20 at this event. And if you're going to get a top 20 out of one of these guys at 6,100, that opens up your lineup to do whatever the hell you want. You're going to be different, and you can do whatever the hell you want with the other 4-5 guys.
I mean, dude, Lee Hodges has 2 top 20 finishes here in back-to-back weeks coming in this event.
Yeah, I mean, what is he priced at?
Hodges is like $6,600, I think.
Whew, I like that. Man, I like that.
Yeah, I mean, Joseph Bramlett, he's made like 4 or 5 cuts in a row with a couple top 10s and a top 15. Again, I'm just throwing names out here to your point. Like, there's options down here.
Yeah, man, this I didn't really look at this field too in depth before we started the show, but yeah, man, this field's pretty juicy. I like it. We already talked about the juicy betting odds, but I like these juicy low 6K guys too. All of a sudden.
Yep, there's definitely some options here, but we did talk a little about the betting, but we didn't do our one and dones. Obviously, Rick, dude, you've been absolutely fire on the one and dones the last 2 weeks. Homa and then Lowry back to back. Obviously, Chris with a big bump hitting Kirk last week in the Honda. I am barely above Mike, who is bringing up the caboose there, but pretty competitive still, even though you're 2 million back. Like, if anybody finishes with somebody in the top 5 this week, like, you get massive winnings. Who do you like this week for your one and done in the API?
I'm going to roll with Rory, and I'm really glad Chris didn't have Chris Kirk last week because he actually had him in a bet, but he had Sungjae.
Oh, I thought he had him for one and done too.
No, he had Sungjae in one and done. So thank God he didn't have Kirk in one and done. Otherwise, he'd be in first place. But yeah, I'm going to roll with Rory this week. I think he's the course history king here. Plays really well here. Obviously, one of the best players in the world. I don't mind this. I was actually just talking to one of my friends about this earlier today. I do not mind the strategy of burning your studs at these elevated events where the price first place prize money is so high. And then the other part of that strategy is like people are like, oh, I want to save Rory for the Masters. You know who else you can use at the Masters that we aren't thinking about? Cam Smith, Dustin Johnson, players from Live that you're not going to get a chance to use anywhere else in the year. So burning the Live studs at the majors and burning your normal PGA Tour studs at these elevated events, I think it's a pretty good strategy. So I'll roll with Rory this week. Mike, let's see here. Mike is going to roll with Scotty Scheffler this week, so he's going to take the defending champ. Jake is going to roll with Colin Morikawa this week. I like that pick. It'll be a little bit different for him. And Chris is going to roll with who is Chris going with this week?
Hatton.
Tyrrell Hatton. Yeah, Tyrrell Hatton. I forgot to write that down. Yep, he's going with Tyrrell Hatton. And who are you going with this week?
I will be taking Matthew Fitzpatrick. I like the upside. I like the potential that a lot of people are not going to be on him this week. I love that we have 5 different picks this week instead of having some repeats like we usually do.
Yeah, we have some repeats in our Puerto Rico Open one and done bets picks. But no one cares about that event, so we're not even going to talk about that here. We'll just
you know what's funny? Like I actually went and looked at it like after we were joking back and forth. Like you took Nate Lashley because he was the betting favorite in your book, and then I took Ben Martin because he was the betting favorite in my book, just to have a name.
Yeah.
But like Akshay Bhatia, like if you look at like the strokes gained metrics, he played very, very well last week. And he is by and large the most consistent guy from like a ball striking perspective of anybody that's in this field. So like that would be the guy. Like I'm not betting on Puerto Rico, but like if I was, I would probably go Akshay at like 22 or 26 to 1, whatever he is.
Did you see the clip of him last week where he went into the mud with like his shirt off and like he basically just went in his underwear, all in the mud, and like he was just like, I'm not getting any of my clothes dirty. He hit the ball and then he got like mud all like kind of on him. He wiped himself down with his towel, and then his girlfriend from the side had an extra outfit for him to wear. So he was able to change into like a brand new outfit in the middle of his round last week, which was pretty dope.
Yeah, no, he's a stud, man. He's one of those guys, like we mentioned Ludwig, like in college, like he absolutely tore it up. He was that guy like that everybody's waiting for to burst onto the scene. And if you look at the guys who've got their first win at Puerto Rico, you're talking about guys like Hovland and Finau. Like it could be a breakout spot for him. I mean, you got guys that play here every year that play well. Like who is it? What's the guy's name? Oh my gosh, is it Bryce Garnett or whatever the hell?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like he shows up in top 10s here every year. Like that's just what he does at this event.
Maybe I'll change my one and done to Akshay Bhatia this week.
I know. I'm thinking about it as well.
I'm thinking about it. Maybe you might have talked me into it, but
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, we are including that in the winnings and all of the one and done stuff this week. So it adds a nice little flavor to these events.
Yep. All right, man. Good talking to you. Hope you feel
better.
better.
For sure. Like I said early on in the show, make sure you subscribe to Nickel City Mafia channel. Rick and I are both on Twitter. Our handles are listed here. You can find us on there at 5-6 Apologist and of course at Riku Mukherjee on Twitter. Rick is also on Instagram under the same handle. And jump in, subscribe, ask questions, leave comments. We will fire back. Join the Discord. The link is down in the description of the video. And best of luck to everybody out there this week. Rick, any closing words as we shut down the show?
No, man. I other than the fact that the tournaments start in the middle of the night for us now, which kind of sucks. I don't really get to watch the guys. By the time I wake up in the morning on Thursday, the morning wave is almost done already by like 8:30 our time. So it kind of sucks that I don't get to see the morning wave guys on Thursdays and Fridays anymore. But it is what it is. I've gotten used to that. I'm not really playing that heavy DFS like I was last year, so I don't really care about waking up in the middle of the night to check withdrawals and stuff like that anymore. If somebody withdraws, whatever, not a big deal. But yeah, man, I like the Florida thing. I'm excited for the players next week, and then what are we? A month and a couple of weeks away from the Masters, man. I can't wait.
Yeah, no, players next week, the quote unquote fifth major. I think we joked about it. Is it Ricky or is it Tom Kim week? I guess we'll have to wait until we get there next week. Yeah. But really, really heating up as we get into the Masters. And, I think your point about one and done and using those few live guys in those spots, I think it's a great strategy. And it'll be a good week. And we've got a couple really good events back to back here with the API and with the. So we'll get to see the best golfers in the world really going at it in very, very tough conditions. And it'll be interesting golf, man. I appreciate it, Rick, as always. Best of luck to everybody out there. And we will see you guys again next week.
See ya.